Well, Wednesday marks 1 year since Justin Trudeau won the election and became the Prime Minister. So it's a good time to look at what he's actually accomplished and that government's accomplished and what he has left to accomplish. We'll kind of grade it because that's what people do these days out of 10. And I'm going to break it down into style and substance. Now, the style of governance, that open governance style that Justin Trudeau has, often dismissed as Prime Minister selfie, the viral Prime Minister. But actually, it's important. Justin Trudeau has rebranded not only the party, but he's been on a rebranding effort for Canada, and that's part of his style. And a lot of that is about accruing political capital. And he spent much of the first year gaining political capital. He's actually higher in the polls today than he was a year ago, and that says something. So let's see what he's used that political capital and how he's spent it. A lot of folks thought it's all style and no substance, but when you actually look at the record, look at what he's actually accomplished. On the economy, they passed the Child Benefit Act. They raised tax on the rich. That was part of what they said they were going to do. But Bill Morneau also scored a big coup when he got a deal on the Canada Pension Plan, extending the CPP. That's a very big deal. They also, in related economic matters, gave the green light to the liquefied natural gas plant in British Columbia, over $11 billion. That was a big win. They took in the Syrian refugees. That was a big win. On foreign policy, they promised 500-600 troops to face off against the Russians in Latvia with NATO. That's interesting. They tripled the number of boots on the ground, the special forces in Iraq working with the Peshmerga. Very important right now as the battle to retake Mosul takes place. He's also promised a peacekeeping force in Africa. Those are not insignificant issues. He's also put a price on carbon. As of 2017, the government will impose a price on carbon of $10 a ton. So he's spent political capital on all those things. Kicked off the inquiry into missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls. That's a very fundamental issue. So he's actually done a lot. On the downside, he said the deficit was going to be $10 billion, it's $30 billion and growing. The big question mark for Justin Trudeau, economic growth. He spent a lot, he's done a lot, but there's still not a lot of growth. That is his biggest challenge going forward and why you have to depress his marks in the last year, because the economic growth simply hasn't come. On the Indigenous affairs issue, expectations high. They promised and delivered over $8 billion in the budget, but they haven't really delivered of anything of great substance yet. So there's still a lot to be done there. A health accord deal. Right now, just this past week, the health minister, Jane Philpott, is working with the provinces to try to hash out a healthcare deal, a health accord. Guess what? The provinces want more money. So the kumbaya circle between the federal government and the provinces is going to break down over that. And that's a hill to climb. But if by the end of this year, Justin Trudeau green lights another pipeline, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, that would go from Alberta to British Columbia. If he green lights that and manages to balance those price on carbon and ratifying the Paris Accord with some natural resources, that would be something that he would consider a big accomplishment. If they actually get a healthcare accord deal, and now that they put a price on carbon, any government would take that as a very strong first year in power. High in the polls, high trust rates, lots of ambitious things on the agenda, and he's got political capital to spend now on the economy, on democratic reform, on some other big files coming. So look, after a year in power, both on style and on substance, there's a lot on the table. There are some warning signs. The expense issue is that old red flag of liberal entitlement. They got to watch out for that thing because you can lose political capital easier than you win it. But they managed to work through that. So you'd have to say at this point, they are close to a 7.5, 8 out of 10 on a first year in government. Big challenges ahead on the economy, big challenges ahead on reaching those climate targets, big challenges ahead on their rhetoric matching their reality. But he's got the political capital to spend, and it will be an interesting and probably more defining and maybe even more divisive second year in power.